Joe DeLeone, host of the A to Z Sports Film Room. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's a wild couple of weeks before the NFL draft is here and that first pick is in, and I can't wait to see how all of this ends up coming to fruition.
Ooh, let's get right into it. So, Joe, let's do a top 5 mock draft today. So, what is your prediction for how these first 5 picks play out?
Yeah, I think at the first overall pick, it's pretty clear at this point that it's Cam Ward. I think anyone who doesn't have Cam Ward is trying to do too much, and no one out there is trying to project that. Since the NFL Combine, they have made it very clear that they are enamored with him as a prospect. They brought him in for a visit after the Combine, and they fell in love, and he is a perfect fit for what they need right now. He has the tools and the traits to be developed around. They need to find more playmakers to support him in order for him to hit that ceiling. But out of any of the quarterbacks in this class, I think that he has the ceiling to eventually be a top 10 or maybe even a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
Okay.
Number 2, Shedeur Sanders, I think makes the most sense for the Cleveland Browns, who need a little bit of a reset at quarterback since Deshaun Watson didn't end up panning out. Huge waste of money for them. Their salary cap situation is a complete and utter mess. So having a cheap option and also a high floor option like Shedeur Sanders, I think completely helps them create a new and a better future. Third overall pick is where things start to get really dicey because the New York Giants needed a quarterback. There's no quarterbacks available for them. There's no good options for them. So they're just going to have to go best available and also the splashiest name. As much as Abdul Carter would be interesting for them, it doesn't make a lot of sense because they already have 2 great pass rushers in Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. So Travis Hunter, who could be a roaming dominant presence on the outside, a corner opposite of Deonte Banks, could also contribute at receiver alongside Malik Neighbors. Fourth, that's where Abdul Carter comes into play for the New England Patriots, who is a super dominant and generational, in my opinion, pass rusher, the best prospect in this class. And the Patriots end up getting to reap the rewards of the quarterbacks dominating the first 2 picks. And then I'll close this out here. Jacksonville Jaguars. I just put out my most recent mock that is coming out on Thursday. Tyler Warren. I think that Tyler Warren from Penn State, the tight end, would be a sneaky pick for Jacksonville because Liam Cohen wants to find ways to support Trevor Lawrence and to set him up to succeed.
Okay, I like that. 2 is a bit spicy. Shedeur at pick 2. So a lot of talk this week about the Colorado Pro Day. We'll start with Shedeur. Obviously a super unique player and someone that is very used to the spotlight. Why should teams be drafting him? Is he your clear number 2 in this draft class, or is it just not as great of a quarterback class?
It's more the second option there. It's not a great quarterback class, and I think that forces a lot of teams to make a lot of they have to be willing to, and whoever's going to draft Shedeur, pass up on him not having the requisite arm strength, him not having the requisite athleticism that you typically look for. But you're at least making up for him not having those tools, that he has elite football IQ. He's a great decision maker. And he's also been lauded. Anybody who knows Shedeur Sanders that you speak to, that has met him, has been around him for extended periods of time, say that he is an amazing leader and he is a very high character young man. So I think that pick, him going somewhere in the top 5 to any of these quarterback needy teams or even in the top 10, ends up making up for those lack of tools. But because there's no good options after Shedeur Sanders, teams are just going to have to, put up with what's available for them in this draft.
So if 2 is the highest that you see him going, what's the lowest he could slide down the board? Could he fall past the Saints at 9? Would they take him? Would he not make it past the Giants if he's there?
I think absolute latest would be the Saints at 9
Okay.
because there are a chunk of teams that need quarterbacks and would love to have a young option on their roster. The Saints would be that last spot where, Kellen Moore just took the new job. He wouldn't have to trade up, have to give up any draft capital to go and get Shedeur Sanders. But I still look at the Jets, who signed Justin Fields this offseason. That doesn't completely remove them from looking at a quarterback in this draft class. The Raiders just traded for Geno Smith and signed him to a multi-year deal, but he's in his mid-30s, and by the time that contract is up, you could turn things over to Shedeur Sanders. But lastly, you just pointed out there, I would be stunned if the New York Giants had Shedeur Sanders on the board and passed on him.
Me too.
Because they are so desperate at the current moment to right the ship and at least to show some sort of positivity on their last legs, Brian Dable and Joe Shane. This is their last opportunity to prove something. They're not going to make the playoffs, so why not show that you have a bright future in the next few seasons with Shedeur Sanders taking your snaps?
Well, and Travis Hunter, man, I don't think I've ever seen a player like this. To me, he's the most exciting player in the draft because he can be utilized in so many different ways. How do you see teams slotting him in, or does that totally depend on the system he goes into?
I think it depends on the team that he goes to, but I think most realistically, he's going to play corner and then
Yeah.
he's going to contribute occasionally at receiver. And the reason for this is one, it's a lot harder to find cornerback prospects that are as gifted as he is. He's got
Mm,
unreal ball skills, his length and his fluidity, his movement skills. All of those things are in the elite category for evaluating cornerback prospects. He can become an all pro very quickly into his career.
mm.
But as a receiver, it requires a really refined attention to detail in his route running, in his instincts and understanding of how to contort his body, and just evaluating film and breaking down
Yeah.
film at both positions. It's going to be too much for him to keep up with both. So I see him mostly contributing in spurts through some series as a receiver while he dominates at corner.
Man, like the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL, I swear.
We say.
If it is going to be Cam Ward to the Titans, which it honestly feels pretty settled, what's a good comp for him that you see for Titans fans?
Yeah, I think that a really interesting one. There's two that I really like. Steve
Mhm.
McNair, who was once a great Titans quarterback in the early 2000s. He was improvisational. He had very underrated athleticism. He always just had like a really cool, calm, collected demeanor, just like Cam Ward does. Or Aaron Rodgers, I think applies too in this conversation because both guys have like this roaming approach to playing the position where
Mm.
they just roam behind the offensive line and wait for things to develop, and nothing phases them. But they have the arm strength to really aggressively challenge defenses once there's a little bit of a gap, once there's just a little bit of space. And on top of all that, that gunslinger mentality that he
Mm.
has the arm to take advantage and really stress defenses to create massive game shifting plays.
Aaron Rodgers, I haven't heard that one, but I kinda like that. In these top 5 picks, do we see a trade here?
I think that a trade is possible, and I think that the most likely trade is the Browns moving off of that second overall pick for
Okay.
somebody to move up and go and get Shedeur Sanders. Again, there are no good options outside of Shedeur and Cam Ward. All the other players, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, Will Howard, Tyler Shuck, they all have their issues. They are best projected as developmental starters or backups in the NFL. So that means teams that badly need some sort of a solution, a quarterback, are going to pick up the phone and try and trade up to that second overall spot to go and get Shedeur Sanders. The other possibility here is if Abdul Carter makes it to pick 5 and the Jaguars don't need a pass rusher because they've invested multiple years at that
Mhm.
position and also multiple second contracts along their defensive line, somebody could pick up the phone. Maybe it's the Atlanta Falcons to try and go and get Abdul Carter.
Thanks for watching this episode on the BetCanada channel. Hit that subscribe button because I've got more draft content coming with Joe you're gonna wanna see.